It's really good. But just like Pinocchio, when he finally proved his selflessness, I'm gonna be real. I'm gonna be honest here. I didn't love it as much as I thought I would, and I didn't love it as much as everyone else seems to. I went into Nosferatu expecting this to be one of my favorite movies of the year. In fact, it's the sole reason I haven't done a top 5 movies of 2024 yet, because I was so certain that this film was going to enter into that top 5. I had expectations out the wazoo on it. Maybe unfairly so, but I just had a whole lot of faith in it because very talented director. The trailer I thought was incredible. Usually I'm not super impressed by trailers, but this one I actually was. I thought it was a really good looking movie. I love the Dracula tale. I mean, ever since I saw Bram Stoker's Dracula, I've always thought it was a very cool story, and this is a very talented director putting his spin on the story. This seemed like a fucking slam dunk to me. And in a lot of ways, in a lot of departments, it is, but it's definitely not in my top 5 films of the year. I did like it. I liked it very much, but I'm not going to be gushing grannies over this one, unfortunately. I have a lot of great things to say about it, but I know at this point no one gives a fuck about that since I've said all of this. No one's going to care about my compliments. I think now they just want to hear the complaints on why I feel differently about it than most people seem to. But I'd still like to start with all the compliments because, again, this is a very good movie. I think the style of the film is spectacular. It is probably my favorite movie stylistically of the year. Every scene is just gorgeous, and the atmosphere is haunting, chilling. Like, every shot is breathtaking. It is so good. And it also really helps that the acting, all of the performances are outstanding. Extraordinary work. I dare say it might even be better than my performance in The Hunger Games Mockingjay Part 1. And you know I don't give that compliment out lightly. Everyone in here really did an immaculate job breathing life into their characters. And speaking of breathing life, let's talk about death. Nosferatu himself, Count Orlok, this is probably the best depiction of Dracula. He's not like Gary Oldman, where he's basically just like a fucking swagged out man who's a smooth talker and charming. No. Bill Skarsgård as Count Orlok, he's a monster. He's just actually a revolting monster. He looks like one of Nurgle's disciples from Warhammer 40k. He is this blistering, oozing, rotting thing. And it is menacing. And it helps that Bill Skarsgård did such a good job of making this character scary. Every time he is on screen and speaking, it's like a holy shit, what is this thing? This isn't the same kind of Dracula depiction I think anyone was expecting, certainly not me, where it's like, oh, there's still like some kind of human element to the monster. But no, Count Orlok is actually just death. He is evil incarnate. There is not even a single moment of humanization. He is a plague, a miasma that kills all, and that is that. He is just an evil thing. And I love that. I think that is a great direction for this character. And Bill Skarsgård crushed it. Another thing I didn't expect is that the film is pretty heavy on horror. I didn't think that this would actually be, a horror movie. I thought there'd be elements of it. But no, it's really a pretty strong horror film in its own right. So that was a pleasant surprise because they did horror well. It builds tension effectively. You get the feeling nobody is safe because Count Orlok truly is just an evil monster that will kill anyone at any time. It was a very nice surprise to see just how much they were committed to unnerving the audience. And I think they really accomplished that goal. But now I want to get into some things that I don't think worked all that well. I guess for me personally. This movie, time doesn't really exist. Every character in this film has unlocked fast travel. And I mean that in the truest sense of the word. So the film starts where we have Thomas, who is going to Count Orlok for some business. I feel like if you've seen Bram Stoker's Dracula, you'll kind of know that premise. It doesn't follow Bram Stoker's Dracula one-to-one or anything, but there is clearly some elements that are shared between them. It's, Dracula's story at its core. Then Nosferatu takes that and it builds on it in a really, really beautiful way. But in the beginning, you have Thomas, and he's going to Count Orlok's. They make it clear that this is a pretty arduous journey. It's a 6-week venture out there. It's not quick by any means. But he gets there pretty quickly, which is fine. You don't need to spend 6 weeks on the fucking Oregon Trail, right? You don't need to know everything that happens on the journey. He gets there and it's nightmarish. It's a really good set of sequences that happen that showcase just how fucked up and deranged Count Orlok is. And Thomas is feeling the effects of, I'm actually here with the devil right now. It's great stuff. And then Thomas eventually, he escapes. I guess this is getting into spoilers now. I'm going to give spoiler warnings here, but there's no way I can talk about my complaints without getting into spoilers. So he's able to get out of there, and his wife, Ellen, she's very concerned. She didn't want him to go on this trip. She's had all of these nightmares that feel real, and there's a lot of things that she knows that she should know because of this strange set of nightmares that happen and the things that go on while she sleeps. So she knows that things are pretty perilous, and Thomas still goes, and then all that happens. He escapes, and there's this tension of, man, what's happening with Thomas? I hope Thomas is okay, and that's felt with Ellen as well as Thomas's friend, who is taking care of her in his abode. And they're all concerned. And then Thomas kind of just rolls up on horseback like lickety-split. So Thomas escapes, and he gets nursed back to health by some religious people that are able to help kind of stifle away the curse of Count Orlok. Now, this is another complaint I have where convenient things just seem to happen with people that are omniscient. So when Thomas escapes, one of the people of the faith happen to see him on the shore. They bring him into the church, and they immediately know everything that he has experienced without him ever telling them. So they are beyond knowledgeable about what has gone on to him and also how to fix it to the best of their ability and heal him. And they do that very quickly. It's only like a 5-minute scene. And then he rides away on horseback. And then like 3 scenes later, he's back with Ellen and everybody else in like the main hub. That was a 6-week journey that he has now just made in 3 scenes without any real feeling that a lot of time has passed between these events. Now, they do have an offhanded mention of months going by, but that's not something you would ever get without them just briefly mentioning it in passing. Now, admittedly, that kind of thing also happens in Bram Stoker's Dracula, but to a lesser degree. There was more time with Keanu Reeves in the castle, and it felt like a longer time had gone by before he made it back. Here, he gets in and gets out pretty quickly, and that is something that stays true throughout the whole film. So there is a time limit that Count Orlok puts on love, saying, there's 3 nights now. You have 3 nights, Ellen. And on one of the nights, on night 2, something tragic happens, where someone's family is murdered. And in the morning, the person wakes up, realizes this, and then somehow all in the same day is able to throw a funeral, have that service, go back, talk again and strategize about this plague, and then still have time to once again go back to that funeral, to the cemetery, excuse me. All of this happens in a day somehow. So he must have woke up, saw his family's dead, and said, all right, immediately, Jarvis, we need to schedule the funeral now. Like, how the fuck could you have gone from something that horrific to having the funeral in a matter of minutes, I guess? Because that's the only way that the timeline makes sense. He would have immediately had to have that funeral. It's just really weird to me, unless I somehow missed something. Now, they do have, like, coffins that are going down the streets for some other shots because of the plague that is coming through. So I'm guessing it's entirely possible that, well, he just immediately wrapped them up in the coffin and just sent them to the cemetery for a quick service. But I just feel like that's really out of character for that guy to do, because he loved his family so much. I don't think he would have immediately tried to speed run the grief process in the morning and a funeral. So like, it just feels like time doesn't really exist properly in the film. So even though they say 3 nights, it feels like weeks pass. There's a couple other instances I can point to, but there's no need. You get what I'm trying to say. It just felt a little weird that every character seemed to have Goku instant transmission. But it didn't bother me all that much because it kept the pacing moving. Not that I mind slow pacing, but there are a couple moments where the pacing does get a bit awkward. Again, that's not even like a complaint or anything. But what is a complaint, and it's my biggest complaint, is that it really feels like no matter what the characters did here, they didn't actually have any effect on the story. So even something unexpected like Tom's escaping, Count Orlok didn't plan on that, and when he gets the news he escaped, he was surprised. But he even says, hey, he could be useful to me. And ultimately, it just truly didn't matter that he escaped. His escape did nothing to throw a monkey wrench into anything at all. None of the characters' presence or their decisions did anything at all with the story itself and the way that it progresses. They are kind of just spectators watching what happens and learning why it's happening. So that just kind of felt underwhelming that what the characters were doing just really wasn't mattering. They were kind of just trying to figure out, well, what is Nosferatu? What's going on here? And why is Ellen so haunted? What is the connection here? And then when shit's hitting the fan with some fart on top because of a plague that's coming through killing everybody, they're trying to figure out, well, what can we do to stop this and, stop Nosferatu? And they never really get a plan in motion. They get the semblance of a plan and they act on something that one of the characters knows actually doesn't matter. That is the point. He is literally doing something he knows doesn't matter because what's happening is already predetermined. It's on rails and none of the characters can do anything to stop it. So when the movie concludes, it feels a little underwhelming that all of these characters that we've come to know and love really didn't have an effect on the plot. It was one character making the decision that the bad character wanted them to the whole time, and that's that. It just feels a little lackluster. I don't mind movies that don't have a happy ending. In fact, some of my favorite pieces of media don't have happy endings. A non-happy ending can sometimes be the most powerful one. But here, it just felt like the journey was an ultimately meaningless one. Like, these characters never actually even fought against Nosferatu in any sense of the word. Like, I don't mean fucking pugilistic throwing down with him or anything silly like that. I mean, they really didn't do anything that had him concerned that his plan wasn't going to work. Everything went exactly the way it was said to in the very beginning. And that'd be fine if there was at least a couple of moments where, like, oh, the characters might actually do something to stop him. Like, there's stakes where, like, the characters are going to pull through and come up with a great solution here to fix this and save everyone or something. They're going to fight back against evil. But they never actually do. There is one thing that gets set in motion, like I mentioned, where they thought they were about to do something to Nosferatu, but one character knew the whole time they weren't. And they didn't. And for me personally, that just doesn't feel very satisfying, especially when you buy into this love story between Ellen and Thomas about, like, how powerful that love is, that it can overcome evil and defy evil, defy Nosferatu. But it doesn't. It never even for a second makes Nosferatu think that it might. Like, there was never any defying of Nosferatu at all. It's just, I don't know, it felt very unsatisfying for me in that regard. And that is pretty much the sole reason why it's not, like, in my top 5 of the year. There is a lot I really like about the movie. Like, there's a lot I could glaze it on. And there is a lot that I mentioned at the beginning that I did glaze it on. But this one thing for me is just kind of a big deal because for a movie like this, you buy into these characters. The performances are amazing. The storytelling is great. Like, everything is getting you hooked. But as it gets towards the end, the characters aren't actually even directly participating. It's just showing you, reminding you, the characters are powerless. That it is a hopeless situation here. And the best they can do is learn about Nosferatu so they can realize just how powerless they are against him. And that's just not super fulfilling, I don't feel. So it just feels like, oh, well, that's just sad. You know, like, it just feels, for me, unsatisfying. So yeah, I like the movie a lot. I just don't love it like I thought I would and like everyone else seems to be loving it. And that's okay. I feel like that's all right. We can like different things to different degrees, I would say, when it comes to movies like Nosferatu. Anyway, though, I definitely think it's worth watching. That's about it. See ya.